Morning, everybody.
Good morning. Yeah.
Are we excited to make history and send Angela Alsobrooks to the United States Senate? Do we trust Larry Hogan with women's bodies and women's rights?
No.
We know what we have to do. And I'm so excited to be here with my partner in being an executive in Baltimore and in Maryland, and Prince George's County Executive, Angela Alsobrooks, but also someone that I know will be on the right side of history.
Yes.
Despite what he may say, Lion Larry will say anything to get your vote. We know what he did in vetoes. We know he didn't support women's rights when he was the governor of Maryland.
Right.
We know here in Baltimore better than anyone that he will vote on his interest over yours. He will build his legacy over your back if he has to. We are talking about a governor that took months to meet with me, Mr. Governor, when I won election, to talk about violent crime and the pandemic when it was raging here and across this country. We are talking about a governor who gave back $1 billion in funding and ended our red line that now we had to resurrect. We should never send someone who will build his legacy over the most needed people in his state to the United States Senate. We cannot do that. We are talking about someone who literally took Baltimore, the largest city in Maryland, the place that the world thinks about when they think about this state, off the map. I don't trust Larry Hogan with his own bodies, for sure not that of women. I don't trust Larry Hogan to make the right decision about who's going to win the football game on Sunday. Sorry, future Senator, I'm sorry. It won't be the Commanders. I still love you. But also, I don't trust him to stand up to Donald Trump. I don't trust him to stand against Project 2025. And when push comes to shove, he will vote with this party, which is why in Maryland, we have to make history to send our first woman to be our U.S. Senator. The obey on top is that she happens to be a black woman, right? And as I say about the presidential election, and I'll say about this senatorial election, we know that black women have saved this country from itself time and time and time again. We have to, and in Maryland, we will elect them to lead us. So thank you very much, and welcome to Baltimore City. I have the honor of presenting to you all today a good friend to you and I and everybody, a leader that has led the United States Senate for so many years, someone who is a proud Baltimorean. I won't talk about his choice of high school, that's okay. Your friend, my friend, our great Senator, United States Senator Ben Cardin.
Mr. Mayor, city forever. First, to Angela Alsobrooks, you knocked it out of the park with that debate. I mean, you did us all so proud. Wow, what a job. And we're not surprised. It shows why she should be and will be the next United States Senator from Maryland. Now, I'm for Angela for many reasons. She is the most qualified to be the next United States Senator. She has our values, we know that, and she knows how to get things done. So she is the best person to be elected our next United States Senator. But it goes well beyond that on the issues that we're voting on this election. We know what's on the ballot. And we know how Angela Alsobrooks feels about the key issues of our times. How she feels about the safety of our children with gun safety legislation. How she articulated that during the debate. How she feels about fairness issues in our tax code and in our budget so that we have fairness in our society. And she knows that we need to protect a woman's right of reproductive rights, and that we must make that a fundamental issue throughout our Constitution. So for all those reasons, she has the values, she has the record, she's the person who we must make sure is our next United States Senator. But I want to talk about one other issue, and that is the control of the Senate. I hear that back and forth during that debate. I've served with the Republicans in control of the United States Senate. So I can tell you what it means. It means in regards to Merrick Garland's nomination by President Obama, we had the votes on the floor of the United States Senate. So it's not them having the votes, it's that the Republicans wouldn't let us vote on it.
Yeah.
And the first vote that's going to be taken in the next Congress is which party controls the United States Senate.
Right.
We got to make sure that Maryland's vote is for the Democrats and that we keep control of the United States Senate. And that's Angela Alsobrooks. I'll tell you one other vote we had on the floor, we didn't have on the floor of the United States Senate. After so many of these school tragedies,
Come on.
we had the votes in the United States Senate to pass sensible gun safety legislation. We had the votes, but the Republicans controlled the gavel and wouldn't bring it up for a vote. So make no mistake about it, this is a team sport. And we have to make sure the Democrats control the United States Senate. For all those reasons, we got to make sure that Angela Alsobrooks is elected as our next United States Senator. And I'll just conclude on this. I have a daughter and I have granddaughters. The Dobbs decision means that their rights are less than what my generation had in regards to reproductive rights. Every generation we want to increase your rights. We cannot let the Dobbs decision stand. We need a person in the United States Senate that will make a priority to restore reproductive rights for women everywhere in America, and that's Angela Alsobrooks. We got an all-star cast here to show our support for Angela Alsobrooks. It's getting close to the election, people. So we're all out here to make sure this takes place. But I want to introduce a real expert on this, Dr. Regina Davis-Moss, who is a national, international expert on these issues. She heads up in our own voice, Black Women for Reproductive Justice. And she has been an incredible frontline work leader, crusading on behalf of women's health care and adolescent girls' health care issues and equity issues in our healthcare system. We have seen for too long discrimination in our healthcare system. She has been one of the great leaders on behalf of justice in healthcare. I'm honored to present to you Dr. Regina Davis-Moss.
Thank you so much, and good morning to everybody.
Morning.
It's such an honor to be here with all of you today after Angela's amazing performance last night. As said, my name is Dr. Regina Davis-Moss. I'm a public health professional with a PhD in maternal and child health and a master's degree in public health. And I'm also the president and CEO of In Our Own Voice Action Fund, an organization founded to educate and mobilize voters on key reproductive justice policy issues. I think it's important to ground us in this critical moment right now. We are in this critical moment our country is in. Our bodily autonomy is under attack like never before. Now, when I was pregnant, I did everything I was supposed to do. I had access to the best maternal care, I attended all my checkups, I was financially stable, and despite all of this, I still had serious complications during my delivery. My blood pressure spiked, my temperature spiked, and I had an emergency C-section, and my son was rushed to the NICU. It was an incredibly scary moment for all of us. Now imagine what it's like for the millions of women living in states with extreme abortion bans, where maternal care for serious complications is even further out of reach than it was for me. I'm sure you've all seen the devastating stories of Amber Nicole Thurman and Candy Miller, two Black women from Georgia who were killed by the state's dangerous 6-week abortion ban. And it might seem unrelated to be discussing Georgia in an event about Maryland's Senate race. But these issues could not be more connected. What's happening in states like Georgia, Texas, and the countless others is a coordinated attack on our human rights. It's what happens when people are denied access to critical, time-sensitive, and life-saving care. It's what happens when reproductive health care is stigmatized and criminalized. It's what happens when politicians like Larry Hogan decide they can make better decisions about our bodies than we can. We need to fight for safe communities, affordable housing, access to health care, and the ability to provide for our families and ourselves. Access to quality, affordable health care should not be determined by your zip code, and decisions about our bodies should not be made by a handful of judges. Our health, our safety, our livelihoods matter, and that shouldn't depend on anything. It shouldn't depend on your gender. It shouldn't depend on your identity. It should just depend on the virtue of being born. When we talk about reproductive justice, we're talking about fighting for a world where women, including Black women, girls, and gender-expansive people and their families can thrive. Now, all eyes are on the presidential election, but equally important is maintaining the Democratic majority in the Senate, taking back the House. Sending Larry Hogan to the Senate would not make that possible. It would make Republicans that much closer to advancing a dangerous agenda, which, if Project 2025 is any indication, would mean that our human rights would continue to be attacked from every single angle, from bodily autonomy to voting rights to quality education. And to be clear, Black women are going to be impacted the most. That is why In Our Own Voice Action Fund is thrilled to support Angela Alsobrooks for the U.S. Senate in Maryland. She knows that reproductive health care is inextricably linked to stopping gun violence, fighting for affordable, higher quality education, and building generational wealth for our communities.
Yes.
Marylanders and Americans across the country want to be able to grow their families and know that they can provide for them. So when I say that this election, our bodily autonomy is on the line, I want you to think about that holistically. Thank you all for your time, and it is my pleasure now to turn it over to Dr. Preetha Nandi.
Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here today. I want to start by saying how exciting it was to watch Angela on the debate stage last night. I am Dr. Preetha Nandi, and I am an OBGYN and abortion provider here in Maryland. I am also a new mom, a daughter of immigrants, and a proud Southerner.
Hey.
I have the privilege of helping to support women in building their families on their terms. I have shared in tears of joy when new and growing families are built, and have also shared in sorrow after devastating diagnoses, maternal health complications, and complicated life circumstances that make pregnancy difficult or dangerous for my patients. We are lucky to be in a state which values the reproductive freedoms of all people and proactively fights for these rights. Make no mistake, this Senate election is a fight for the lives of Maryland women and a fight for families. Before moving to Maryland, I had medical training in Georgia, where people are suffering under a near total abortion ban. As a medical student, I testified against this ban because it threatened patient safety and patient dignity. And unfortunately, as we've seen by the recent tragic deaths of Amber Nicole Thurman and Candy Miller, politicians interfering in medical decisions hurt families and their freedoms. Abortion bans prevent healthcare providers like me from caring for my patients when they need me the most. Just last week, I took care of a patient who unfortunately broke her water 4 months into the pregnancy, which would be too early to intervene, and put her at risk of life-threatening infection and bleeding. She was traveling for work and had to book a plane trip back to Maryland from a state where abortion is illegal. She and her partner watched the plane tracker on their screens to see how long she would have to potentially hide her symptoms in the plane bathroom, depending on which state they may have to emergency land in. The inhumanity of what this patient experienced should never happen. And luckily, Maryland continues to be a safe haven for women across the nation to get the necessary evidence-based medical care they deserve, and this patient could return home to get that care. While Larry Hogan may claim to support women's right to choose, his track record proves otherwise. As governor, he vetoed legislation to expand access to abortion and withheld funding to train more abortion providers in Maryland. More so, we cannot take the chance of him voting along party lines at a national level.
That's right.
Because we've seen this playbook before. When Republican senators who say they support women voted federal and Supreme Court justices into office who led to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We cannot go back. The consequences are just too severe and deadly. I am proud to stand with this campaign that will deliver equitable and humane care to the women of Maryland and protect my patients' right to choose what is best for them and their families, and not what is best for their political party. Angela is the only way to ensure we protect the freedom over our own bodies, the freedom to be safe and feel safe, and the freedom to provide for our families. In the Senate, Angela Alsobrooks will co-sponsor the Women's Health Protection Act. Woo! Yeah. Yes. And will fight to make sure women have what they need to be healthy and thriving. I look forward to electing Senator Alsobrooks into office so we have a true ally, advocate, and warrior for Maryland women. It is now my distinct honor to introduce another champion for the women and families of Maryland, Senator Van Hollen.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nandi. Thank you, Dr. Moss. Let's thank both of them for telling their stories of care for others and for making sure that we elect Angela Alsobrooks to make sure that we protect reproductive health care in Maryland and around the country. Thank you both, doctors, for being here. It's wonderful to be here with all the women for Alsobrooks. It's great to be here with the men for Alsobrooks. And I'm telling you, Maryland is for Alsobrooks. And my goodness, that was a grand slam. You made us so proud in the debate last night, because you laid out very clearly why you are the best choice for all Marylanders. You laid out the issues on economic empowerment and opportunity, trying to make sure it's not just the folks at the very, very top who get more tax cuts, but that we take care and support middle-class families and those who are working their way into the middle class. You were there on the public safety issues. We were there on the healthcare issues broadly. The issues Marylanders care about, you spoke to, and powerfully last night, as you did on the issue of reproductive freedom. And we know where you stand. What we've watched with Larry Hogan is an attempted election year conversion on the issue of reproductive choice. But last night, it was very clear he has not actually made that conversion. It was very clear he does not prioritize women's reproductive freedoms. And there are a number of dead giveaways. The first was, and Angela Alsobrooks mentioned this, the way he's talked about Trump's Supreme Court judges. He called those justices that were appointed by Donald Trump incredible justices. He said that after they ruled to strike down Roe v. Wade. When we know these justices were handpicked by Donald Trump and passed by Republican senators for the specific purpose of overturning Roe v. Wade. Those are Larry Hogan's incredible justices. Then we heard very clearly from Angela Alsobrooks, she will support the main piece of legislation supported by Democrats to make sure that we codify the rights of Roe v. Wade nationally. That's the Women's Health Protection Act. Larry Hogan, he has refused to say he would support that. Number three, the only way you will ever get a vote on reproductive freedom nationwide is to have at least a limited exception. I support a full reform, but a limited exception to the supermajority filibuster rule in the United States Senate. Because as Hogan acknowledged, you're not going to get 60 votes in the Senate for the Women's Health Protection Act. So we need to carve out that exception if we have any chance of getting this through. Larry Hogan, He said he would not do that. So he's not serious about these issues. What he is serious about doing is casting his very first vote and his most consequential vote for Republican leadership in the United States Senate.
Thank you, Senator.
And this is a pretty clear political math, actually not even political math, this is straight out math, right?
That's right.
We are effectively right now at 50-50 in the United States Senate. We're gonna have 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans. So the Maryland vote for Senate will determine which party controls the United States Senate. And Larry Hogan has said he will vote for the Republican majority leadership. You pointed out he could have run as independent.
Right, right.
He is committed to doing that. That means after the Republicans take charge, if he were to do that, that they will run the show. Lindsey Graham, who has the bill to effectively ban abortion nationwide, would be the chairman of the Judiciary Committee.
That's right.
Ted Cruz would be in charge of the Commerce and Science Committee. So, you know, once Larry Hogan does what he's committed to doing, which is voting for Republicans to be in charge of the United States Senate, it really doesn't matter what he does the rest of the time. Because as Senator Cardin pointed out, they won't even bring these bills up. So this is why McConnell called him, Larry Hogan, his #1 recruit. This is why the Republican Senate Campaign Committee is spending millions of dollars to elect Larry Hogan. This is why super PACs are spending tens of billions of dollars to try to support and elect Larry Hogan. They want MAGA Republicans in charge of the United States Senate. It's as simple as that. Now, I do wish that the debate moderators had put another question to Larry Hogan last night. Because yesterday, Time Magazine came out with a big expose
That's right.
on the fact that when Larry Hogan was governor, he used that position to help enrich himself and the Hogan real estate holdings. It said very clearly that he voted federal tax credit dollars for affordable housing. Larry Hogan directed huge amounts of those tax credits to his company's real estate holdings. So not only did he have a conflict of interest that he didn't disclose, he actually enriched his company as governor by directing those funds that way. So that's a part of the conversation that we need to continue to have. But the biggest issue as we go forward remains what Angela Alsobrooks put out there very clearly last night. Her great record compared to his record, the fact that she will represent our values and our principles, and the fact that she will make sure that President Harris is able to get that agenda through the United States Senate. And just like Vice President Harris cast really important votes, tie-breaking votes for judges and for the Inflation Reduction Act, we want Vice President Walz to do that. But he's not going to be able to do that if we don't have 50 Democratic senators, at least, in the United States Senate. So in addition to getting a great new senator, as Ben Cardin said, and if we want to make sure we're true to the Cardin legacy, we need to make sure Angela Alsobrooks gets elected. In addition to having a great senator, we're going to have somebody who makes sure that we can move our country forward and not get dragged back again by Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans. There's another person who's making sure our state moves forward, constantly forward, leaving nobody behind, who recognizes what's at stake in this Senate election. That is none other than our great governor, Wes Moore.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Man, this is what victory feels like. This is what victory feels like. And I'm telling you, the reason we know this is what victory feels like is Angela Alsobrooks put on a display last night. A display of what it means to be tough. A display of what it means to be brilliant. A display of what it means to lead. Angela, County Executive, my friend, we are so proud of you. We are proud to stand with you, and we are so excited to make you Maryland's next senator. God bless you, and congratulations. Congratulations. And you know what, I think about what we saw last night from her. We saw two things that, for all of us who've had the pleasure of working with Angela Alsobrooks, we've known for a long time, but we are so excited that Maryland got a chance to have a full display of two things. One, that she's the candidate of the future.
Yeah.
That she focuses on the future. That she's not going to spend her time telling us what's wrong with the now. She's not going to just tell her time we're focusing on the past. She focuses on the future and has real results. Because the thing is, honestly, what we've heard from Larry Hogan this entire campaign is what's wrong with things.
Right.
This is broken, this is wrong, Washington's this, Washington's that. Had no interest in going down there because Washington's a mess, and then he decided to run for Senate. But with no real solutions as to what you would actually do and how we would fix it. But what we saw from Angela Alsobrooks is not just an understanding of what needs to happen, but an understanding of what she's going to do when she gets there.
Yes.
That she left no question at all about the fact that she's prepared to take the tough votes.
That's right.
Yes.
And she's prepared to do what it takes to advance the issues of the people of this state. And she brought up a really important point yesterday. You can't tell me that you're going to push back against Donald Trump if you go to the Senate when you won't even vote against him when he's running for president.
That's right. That's right.
It doesn't make sense.
Right.
She's the candidate of the future. And the other thing she showed us last night was this. She's a candidate of trust and transparency.
Yes. Yes.
Because, you know, and Senator Van Hollen, first, just thank you for your leadership and for your voice continually for our state. And I continue to fight for us in our state. And the Senator brought up a really important point, too. Is that, you know, I know, and I'm sure y'all's too, my phone has been blowing up for the past 24 hours. With Marylanders all across our state, and Marylanders all across political stripes, who are like, what in the world is going on? How do you have a governor who's made millions while he was the governor for himself and also made his friends tens of millions of dollars?
That's right.
Make it make sense. When I literally had someone call me up yesterday and say, wait, my understanding is when you became the governor, you put all of your assets in a blind trust.
Right.
And Larry Hogan just put it in a Hogan trust.
Right.
That's the only thing you trust.
Make it make sense. Make it make sense. And so I think there are some very real questions that need to be asked. And another thing, frankly, that I've heard is that it's amazing which things get like coverage, you know, extensively, and which things people just think is not a big deal.
Yeah. Amen.
And it's important that we do have fair coverage on these things. But the other thing we saw is this. When we are talking about the issues that Marylanders know are right in front of us and the challenges that we have, there is one candidate who actually had detailed plans and also a track record of addressing them, and that candidate is Angela Alsobrooks. That when we are talking about things like reproductive health and reproductive rights, that when Larry Hogan says, you know what, reproductive health are not going to be a challenge for the women of the state of Maryland, people in the state of Maryland, he's right, because he's not the governor anymore.
Right.
He's right, now they're not going to be a challenge. But also when you ask him questions about, and he says that he didn't think it was really necessary to put abortion protections in Maryland's Constitution. Despite the fact that, by the way, let's not forget, when Roe v. Wade fell, he was the governor.
Yes.
And his response to it was vetoing legislation that enhanced privacy,
Yes.
vetoing legislation that enhanced protections.
Yes.
On my first day of office, I had to release $3.5 million of previously unreleased funds because he refused to do it for political purposes.
That's right.
That we have someone, when he's talking about things like public safety,
That's right.
and talks about how he's going to be a law and order kind of senator. But here's the reality. The truth and the transparency on it is when Angela Alsobrooks was state's attorney for Prince George's County, the violent crime rate in Prince George's County was cut nearly by half while she was the state's attorney in Prince George's County. But I have not heard Larry Hogan talk once about what happened to crime when he was the governor. So let's talk about that for a second.
Hey, yes, sir.
Let's talk about the fact that while Larry Hogan was governor, the homicide rate in the state of Maryland nearly doubled. The non-fatal shooting rate in the state of Maryland doubled. That Baltimore City went 8 straight years of 300 plus homicides. Larry Hogan did not see a single year where the homicide rate in Baltimore was lower than 300. Not one. But he's not going to talk about that. He'll make up excuses. And he'll try to deceive us. And he'll try to tell us that we somehow would be unsafe with someone who actually has a proven track record of being able to bring crime down in her jurisdictions. But facts do matter, guys. And truth and transparency in this race does matter. And so do values. The reason that we are all in for Angela is because we know who she is. We know what she fights for. And we know who she fights for.
Us. That's right.
She fights for us. She fights for everyday Marylanders who are just hoping that we can just get a little bit of breathing room. Fights for everyday Marylanders who want to make sure that our freedoms are protected and not being restricted. Fights for everyday Marylanders who want to ensure that we have a chance to have pathways of work and wages and wealth for all of us, and not just our friends, and not just for people who do business with our companies. Everyday Marylanders. The reason we're all in for her is because she's all in for us. And the reason that in 3 weeks, we are going to make sure that Angela Alsobrooks becomes the senator-elect for the state of Maryland, and in January, she gets sworn in to be our senator, is because we know the blinding opportunity that stands in front of Maryland right now. If we vote right. If we have the right people in the right seats. If we can move unafraid. If we can focus on the future. If we know that we are going to have a senator who is going to join a remarkable delegation, who's going to make sure that it's Maryland first, and that it's people always. I am so proud to be able to stand here with my friend. I'm so proud to stand here with my colleague. And I'm so proud to stand here with someone who I cannot wait until the day I can call her up and say, "What's going on, Madam Senator?" My friend and Maryland's next senator, Angela Alsobrooks.
Beautiful crowd. I have to tell you all, I am so grateful to every single one of you who have come out to stand with me today from all across Maryland. It is so important. These are all my sisters. These are my neighbors. And when I say that, I mean that quite literally. I'm reminded, and I repeat it often, that it was Rabbi Prince who said so eloquently that neighbor, that we're all created as each other's neighbors, and that the term neighbor is not a geographic term, it's a moral term.
That's right.
And so we are connected one to each other, and we have an obligation to ensure that all of our families thrive and that we stand up for each other. And so I want to thank them each so much for coming out today. It has made my day. How we feel about the captain of Team Maryland, our Governor Westmore, who is not only the pride of Maryland, he's the envy of America. We want the rest of them to know they cannot have him. He is our governor, and we are so proud of you and proud of your leadership. And I want to thank you so much for standing with me in this journey. So thank you so much to the incredible mayor of Baltimore City, who is here in his jersey. He's already ready to win on Sunday. Yeah. And even has the tie to go with it, but we're proud of you. And thank you so much for your leadership as well. To the two beautiful doctors who have come out, these strong women who are not only strong strong in their own families, but are compassionate and brilliant. We thank you so much for your courage and for being with us. These two incredible senators, who are not just senators in the state of Maryland, I have to tell you that I feel just so grateful that they are also my friends. I want to thank Senator Van Hollen for his leadership and his courage. Thank him also for just standing with me throughout the race, and just so can't wait to be your partner in the Senate. To Senator Cardin, who has also become, he's not only an incredible senator for our state, he for me has also been a marvelous mentor as well. I've been able to call on him again and again and again, in particular regarding foreign policy. You know, he's an expert there. So for those who said, oh my God, you sounded so great on that debate stage last night where the foreign policy questions came up, thank Senator Cardin for his tutelage, and to say to them, I'm so proud and so grateful to each of you. You know, my daughter wrote me today and she surprised me when she said, Mom, I organized a debate party. I didn't even know, I didn't trouble her to watch the debate. I know she's in school, she's a sophomore in college, she's in Georgia. And I thought she would be studying. I didn't even mention the time or anything. And she said, I organized a little debate party last night in my room. And that the young women came and they sat in the room with her. And she said, we were all cheering and we were so proud and so grateful for what you're doing. And you know, it meant the world to me for her to know, and her classmates. And be clear, some of her classmates are not Marylanders. They live all across the country, and they too know that all of us who are standing here today are fighting for them.
Yes.
And so it is the case that I am fighting for my own daughters' privacy and freedom, fighting for all of our daughters and granddaughters and nieces and goddaughters who are in the state of Maryland. But be clear, I am standing on principle, fighting for the young women of our country who deserve the same rights, no matter your zip code, no matter your geography, that you have the right to make your own health care decisions. And this is a fight that we will not lose because we're right about it. We're right about believing that our mothers and grandmothers who fought, and many of them died in this battle, to ensure that we would have the privacy and the basic freedom to have autonomy over our bodies. And we are not going to roll back the clock and allow our daughters and granddaughters to have fewer rights than we have. This will not stand. It will not stand. And so we are right about it. We are moving forward. And I have to tell you that on the debate stage yesterday, I was so proud to represent women and families all across Maryland who I know stand with me as well. Now, bless his heart, the former governor got on the stage, and in a Freudian slip, he came right out and said, I'm here proud to be running for governor. And, and we want to remind him that he is not running to go back to Annapolis, where he was kept in check by our largely Democratic legislature. But he is, in fact, going to Washington, where things are a little different. We want to remind him also, you know, he was there talking about how cruel and unusual it was for me to say that he was a person who didn't support abortion care rights. You know what? They have a term in the law, res ipsa loquitur. The act speaks for itself. If you veto legislation just 2 years ago that would have given abortion care access across the state, well then in fact, sir, you are not standing with the women of Maryland. And in his confusion, he carried on and he seemed wounded, and he said I had hurt his feelings and saying that he was not supportive. But you know what he did? He not only vetoed the legislation, but in the moment he had the arrogance to withhold the funding to train the abortion care legislators when, let's just be clear about this, when the Democratic legislature overrode his veto, they were speaking because they are elected by the people. They were speaking for the people, and they were carrying out the will of the people in overriding his veto. He didn't respect that. He still withheld the funding until Governor Moore had to come in and save the day and release the $3 million plus that the legislature had authorized. Protecting women. In that same year, just 2 years ago, what did he do? Furthermore, he stood up in front of the cameras and again, for his own reasons, said that, you know, we ought to give credit to, rather. He said, Donald Trump. He deserves credit for his accomplishments in office. And then allowed his mouth to say, including the incredible Supreme Court justices that he nominated. And all of these things are irrefutable. It just is what it is. Now, the trouble that we are going to have, bless his heart, with the governor, former governor, and he said he liked me, and I want to say it back to him. I like him too. He's a nice man. But you know what? It's true. We need leaders who have not only convictions, but courage.
That's right.
And those convictions are the beliefs that we share. That we believe in freedom for all people, that we believe in democracy, that we believe in integrity and decency in our leadership. These are the values that we share, and we have to have leaders who have not only convictions, but have courage. And what I think he has demonstrated again and again and again is he does not have the courage to represent us when the issues are tough. And we saw it again on the debate floor yesterday when he said again and again that he could basically neither confirm nor deny. That was his ongoing refrain. I can neither confirm nor deny. Well, it was what he said last year. Well, no, I'm sorry, this year. When questioned very directly about whether he would, now this is in the primary, when he was questioned directly about whether he would vote to codify in federal law a woman's right to choose, what did he say? I could neither confirm nor deny. He said, I refuse to speculate on any piece of legislation. He stood on the floor yesterday, questioned directly by Chuck Todd, who said, tell me, sir, in the matter of these Supreme Court justices, the ones who basically just took away women's freedoms, would you have voted to confirm them? He said, I can neither confirm nor deny. Didn't he? He said he could neither confirm nor, well, sir, if we need to make an adjustment to the filibuster to codify Roe, will you vote for that? I can neither confirm nor deny. In the case of Donald Trump, how many of us are confused about the manner of this man?
Not at all.
About his poor character, about his disdain for women. How many of us are confused about that? We are not. And in the matter of Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris, will you, sir, since you're bipartisan, a maverick, and an independent, even though he put on the Republican jersey and decided to run on the field when Mitch McConnell called him, when in the matter of this, sir, how will you vote? Will you vote for Donald Trump? I can neither confirm nor deny, right? He said he's I guess, thinking right now which family member he's going to vote for.
That's right.
But what we know is that the Senate is serious business. That the issues that will come before this particular Senate will decide basically the direction of our country, will decide the manner and quality of life for the people of our country, will decide for our children the kind of country they will inherit, whether or not they will have basic freedoms. And we're not just talking about young women, by the way. We're also talking about young men. When we think about things like Planned Parenthood that has not only been supportive of young women, it is also supportive of young men. And this is what this Republican Party has tried again and again and again to take away the funding for and to harm the reproductive freedoms of our children. That's what we're talking about. When we think about the basic rights that our kids have to live free of gun violence, free of gun violence, it was yet again that the former governor could neither confirm nor deny. And how did he do this? When he has big talk, he talks big talk now about him being, pro-law enforcement. Bless his heart, he even put on a flak jacket and flew down to the border and took a photo with his sunshades on to prove how tough he was. But when the rubber hit the road, when he was governor in this state, as you have heard our governor say, homicides increased by 66% and rape increased by 80%. He forgot to tell you that part. And as we were struggling on the ground, and he was complimenting the job I did until he took Mitch McConnell's call. But when the rubber hit the road, what did he do? He, instead of helping us, he vetoed gun legislation that would have created a waiting period for long guns in Maryland and outright refused to sign a ban on ghost guns in our state. So he lacked the basic courage in those moments to stand up for us and our family and for our children who are dying at the hands of guns. So we know where he will stand on many of these issues that are really consequential for so many of us. And I suspect if you wanted to ask him the question about how he would, now he keeps talking about he's so proud he cut taxes, but he forgot to tell you, I too will cut taxes, and I've never raised a tax, never, despite all of the misinformation he's put out, that I support tax cuts for middle-class families.
Yes.
And there is an important distinction. We both agree with tax cuts, but just who we want those tax cuts for. And I wish he had been questioned directly about whether he would have favored tax cuts for these big corporations, because we can already guess what his response would have been. It would have been, I can neither confirm nor deny, right? He could neither confirm nor deny, but we know who he favors. Because the governor has told you, and our senators told you, that when he was a governor, his record speaks for itself. That he allowed 40% of the competitive bids in the state regarding affordable housing to go to clients of his real estate firm. This is a fact. And what did he say when he was questioned about that? And that his clients are the people who made money off of 40% of those competitive bids. He did what made him look more Republican than anything I have seen. He said it was fake news. Sounds familiar, right?
Yes, it does.
And so on all of the issues that matter to us, we recognize, again, there is a real reason why Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, and all of these other folks he's been hanging out with around the country, why the billionaires have come in with these nasty ads, millions and millions of dollars worth here. The same guy who's funding his millions of dollars here, also, they're funding against Democrats across the country. But we now know why they have come in so strongly in this race is because he's on their team.
That's right.
He gladly, without respect, regardless of what he said about, bless his heart, he regards himself as an independent. And you know what? I can't question what's in his mind, but I can tell you what his actions are.
That's right.
Is that he put on their jersey willingly, and he looks more Republican every day. There's a reason why they support him, and it's the reason why we cannot trust him to represent us in the Senate of the United States. And so I want to thank all of you for being here. This is such a serious time. But you know what the good news is? We're going to win the election. And we are going to go forward. And my daughter and her classmates and all of the other young women here in Maryland and across the country who are wondering whether we will stand up for them, well, we will not confirm nor deny. I will confirm. I will confirm that I will stand flat-footed every single instance. In every instance, I will stand for women and for our families. That I will stand in every single instance to protect our children against gun violence. That I will stand in every instance to protect the lives and livelihood of families all across Maryland who want exactly what we want for our families. To live in safe and affordable places, to have economic opportunities that allow our kids to experience their wildest dreams, to have health care when you are sick, affordable and accessible health care. And there will be no question about where I stand on any one of these issues. Is where I have always stood and is where I will continue to stand on behalf of Maryland's families. So I thank you all again for coming. You know what, we have, how many days do we, is it 25 now? 24.
23 to wake up.
23 and a wake up, the governor said. Are y'all ready to win?
Yes.
And you're ready to win big. So thank you so much again to all of you, and God bless you.
Senator. Angela. 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 Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question for the mayor, actually.
Oh, great.
Not on this topic. But related to the outside audit of the public work, have you seen it? Do you have any expectations as to when it's going to be released?
So I think we talked about this all week. We haven't, but as I said in the beginning, we're going to make sure that we go through all that stuff that we're looking for from the law firm, everyone, with the union, with the council, with everyone, before we go back out and put out what they sent in and what our new regulations are going to be. We're going to take our time and do that because we said that we're going to be committed to doing this in partnership with all of those impacted, especially the workers.
But the audit, specific, not just the regulations, but the audit itself, are you going to be releasing that and when?
Once we go through all these things, we'll release them in time, but we're going to do everything in the order that we laid out.
Anyone have a question for the governor?
Governor, we'll take those now. We have to leave right after that. My question for the governor. Thank you, Mayor. You talked about the story yesterday about Public Works and Governor Hogan. Is there any role in your office, or are you, or will you pursue like some kind of look into these contracts that he voted on supposedly, and are you going for further investigation by the Attorney General or anything?
Well, I think one thing that the article helped to lay out yesterday is not just that something is fishy, but that frankly, we're seeing that this is long-standing. That there were reports that were disclosed before that literally Governor Hogan, old governor, made millions of dollars in his first 3 years as governor. Millions, personally, right? That as the county executive mentioned before, when 40% of contracts are going to people who are doing business with your company. So that I think there's a lot of questions that need to be asked, and frankly, I think there's a lot of answers that the old governor needs to provide.
That's right.
Because no one in our state understands this, Democrat, Republican, nor independent. The calls I know that I have received from people do not come from a political party. They come from Marylanders, and I think there's a lot of questions that people have, and I think that these are questions that the old governor needs to be accountable for.
Is there a role for you as a member of the Board of Public Works and the governor right now to look into some of those questions?
Oh yeah, I absolutely think that these are things that all of us collectively need to look into, including the Board of Public Works and others.
Any other questions for the governor? Can you spell out on that topic? Can you spell out what risks there would be for if Hogan were to go into the U.S. Senate? What risks he would carry along this vein in terms of sending business to his own company?
Well, I mean, here's what I know. It matters who sits in these seats, and transparency matters. And I think there are enough questions that I think this is going to be something that people will have in their mind when they're deciding who do they want to put in this seat to represent our interest. And so I do think that this is not, and I know as I've continued to hear from people around the state, this is not a small deal. And I think people deserve transparency, people deserve honesty, and people deserve to know that the people who are sitting in these seats are making decisions that are in the best interest of the people of the jurisdictions and not the people who are sitting in the seats making the decisions.
All right, guys, thank you so much.
There we go.
God bless y'all. Let's go win. Let's go win. Of course.
You can take a photo before you go. Where's Senator Hardin?
You here to take off already?
Did he?
Thank you. Thank you.
Hold on 1 second.
Just there you go.
I know. We all want this picture.
Yeah, we should move this. Oh, should they? I'm letting the sign.